coffee had gone cold in Elena Volkov's hands as she sat in the small café across from St. Catherine's Academy, watching the school entrance with practiced patience. 3:15. Dismissal time. Any moment now, she'd see them. There. The black Mercedes pulling up to the curb, sleek and expensive, the kind of car that screamed money and power. And stepping out of it, the man himself. Luca Santoro. Elena had studied his file for 3 months, knew his routines, his businesses, his reputation as one of the most feared mafia bosses in New York. Knew about his wife Maria's death 2 years ago, the car bomb meant for him that had instead torn apart the only woman he'd ever loved. Knew about his 6-year-old daughter Isabella, who attended this elite private school and had recently started showing signs of trauma that the school counselor had noted in her reports. Reports Elena had accessed through channels she'd rather not discuss, but seeing him in person was different. The photos hadn't captured the controlled violence in his movements, the way other parents instinctively stepped aside when he walked past. He moved like a predator in an expensive suit, dark hair touched with premature gray, shoulders broad enough to fill doorways. This was the man whose organization she needed to infiltrate, the man whose connections could lead her to Dmitry Kozlov, the monster who'd killed her brother Alexei and was now running a trafficking operation that moved children across international borders like cargo. She just had to get close to him, had to find a way into his inner circle. And 3 days ago, opportunity had presented itself in the form of a classified ad. Experienced nanny needed immediately. Live-in position, elite family, excellent compensation, discretion, essential. Elena had recognized the posting for what it was. Luca Santoro's previous nanny had been fired abruptly. Word on the street was she'd been caught doing something that had made the mafia boss personally escort her out of his building, with a warning that if she ever came near his daughter again, she'd disappear into the East River. The position was still open. And Elena had 15 years of fabricated credentials, glowing references from families that didn't exist, and a background check so clean it practically sparkled. She also had advanced combat training, fluency in 6 languages, and a Sig Sauer P226 hidden in a concealed holster beneath her conservative cardigan. But Luca Santoro didn't need to know any of that. She watched him emerge from the school building 10 minutes later, his daughter's hand clasped firmly in his. Isabella Santoro was small for 6, with her mother's dark curls and her father's gray eyes. She walked close to Luca's side, her pink backpack almost as big as she was. Elena noticed immediately that something was off. The child's posture was too careful, too controlled. She didn't skip or chatter the way most 6-year-olds did after school. She just walked quietly beside her father, like she was afraid to take up too much space. That confirmed what Elena had suspected. Whatever had happened with the previous nanny had left marks deeper than bruises. Her phone buzzed. A text from the employment agency. Mr. Santoro has reviewed your application. Interview scheduled for 6 p.m. tonight. Address: 5th Avenue Penthouse. Be prompt. Elena's heart rate kicked up slightly. This was it. Her chance to get inside the Santoro organization, to gain access to the networks that would eventually lead her to Dmitry. She just had to convince one of the most dangerous men in New York to trust her with his daughter. At 5:45 that evening, Elena stood in the marble lobby of Luca's building, smoothing down her gray interview suit. Conservative but professional, hair pulled back in a neat bun, minimal makeup, the kind of appearance that screamed trustworthy nanny rather than Russian agent with a vendetta. The doorman, Raphael, had already screened her twice. ID check, bag search, metal detector. She'd left the Sig Sauer in her apartment. Coming armed to a job interview with a mafia boss seemed like an excellent way to get killed. Mr. Santoro will see you now, Raphael said, gesturing to the private elevator. 32nd floor, the penthouse. Elena stepped into the elevator, her reflection staring back at her from the mirrored walls. Green eyes steady, expression calm. No hint of the rage burning beneath her carefully constructed facade. Dmitry Kozlov had killed Alexei 3 months ago, made it look like a car accident. And now he was expanding his trafficking operation, using legitimate businesses as fronts, children as merchandise. Elena had sworn over her brother's grave that she would burn Dmitry's empire to the ground, even if it meant pretending to be a nanny, even if it meant getting close to a man as dangerous as Luca Santoro. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse. 12,000 square feet of marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Art that probably cost more than most people's houses. The kind of wealth that came from decades of organized crime. Miss Volkov? A man appeared from a side hallway. Not Luca. Someone else. Shorter, stockier, with the watchful eyes of professional security. "I'm Marco, Mr. Santoro's assistant. He'll be with you shortly. Please, have a seat." Quote, Elena sat on a leather sofa that probably cost more than her car. She folded her hands in her lap and waited, very aware that she was being observed, cameras in the corners, Marco standing just far enough away to draw a weapon if needed. This was a test. They were watching to see if she'd fidget, if she'd look nervous, if she'd do anything that suggested she was hiding something. So Elena did what she'd been trained to do. She became exactly what they expected to see. A woman in her late 20s, professional but warm, patient and calm, someone you'd trust with your children. Footsteps. Then Luca Santoro walked into the room, and Elena felt the full force of his presence like a physical weight. Up close, he was even more imposing. 6'2" of controlled danger, dressed in a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, no tie, his dark eyes assessing her with the kind of intensity that could make strong men confess their sins. "Miss Volkov." His voice was deep, measured. "Your credentials are impressive." "Thank you, Mr. Santoro." 15 years of experience, references from 3 high-profile families, specialized training in childhood development and trauma counseling. He sat down across from her, his posture relaxed but his eyes never leaving her face. "You're overqualified for a nanny position. I prefer to think of myself as properly qualified for the right family." "And what makes you think my family is the right one?" Elena had prepared for this question, had rehearsed her answer until it sounded natural. "I specialize in children who've experienced loss. Your daughter lost her mother 2 years ago. That kind of trauma requires someone with specific training and patience." Something flickered in Luca's eyes. Pain, quickly suppressed. "You've done your research." "I always research potential employers. Just as I'm sure you've researched me." A slight smile touched his lips. "Your background check came back clean, almost too clean." Elena's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression neutral. "I maintain professional boundaries with all my clients. No scandals, no drama, just excellent care for children who need it." "My daughter needs more than excellent care, Miss Volkov. She needs protection, safety. Someone who understands that our family faces unique challenges." This was it. The moment where Elena had to acknowledge what she was walking into without admitting she knew too much. "I understand that high-profile families face security concerns, Mr. Santoro. I'm comfortable with background checks, security protocols, and maintaining discretion about family matters." Luca studied her for a long moment. Elena forced herself to hold his gaze, to not look away, to project confidence without arrogance. "My previous nanny betrayed my trust," he said quietly. "She hurt my daughter, not physically but psychologically. Made her think she was bad, that her dead mother would be ashamed of her. Used fear and manipulation to control a 6-year-old child." Elena felt genuine anger rise in her chest. She didn't have to fake that emotion. "That's unconscionable. It's also why I'm extremely careful about who I allow near Isabella now." He leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, Miss Volkov, what would you do if Isabella told you she was scared of something? Someone? I'd listen to her, believe her, and I'd immediately bring it to your attention, even if she asked me not to. A child's safety comes before promises of secrecy. Even if she was scared of me?" The question was designed to test her. Elena held his gaze. "If a child is frightened of her parent, there's always a reason. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Maybe it's something more serious. Either way, the answer isn't to hide it. It's to address it honestly." Luca sat back, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone who would tell me exactly what I wanted to hear. You're honest. That's rare in my world." If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Honesty can be dangerous, Miss Volkov. In my world, people who tell the truth don't always live long enough to regret it. Then perhaps you need more honest people around you. Elena kept her voice gentle but firm. Your daughter has already been hurt by someone who lied. She doesn't need another person she can't trust. Before Luca could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. Daddy? Both of them turned. Isabella stood in the doorway, clutching a stuffed rabbit with one missing eye. She wore pink pajamas with butterflies, her dark curls tangled from sleep. Her gray eyes were wide, cautious. Bella, sweetheart, I thought you were sleeping. Luca's entire demeanor changed. The dangerous Mafia boss disappeared, replaced by a worried father. Did you have another nightmare? Isabella nodded, her gaze shifting to Elena. "Who's that?" "This is Miss Volkov. She's here to talk about maybe being your new nanny." The word nanny made Isabella flinch. Elena saw it clearly, the way the child's shoulders tensed, the way her grip tightened on the rabbit. "I don't want a nanny," Isabella whispered. Luca knelt down to her level. "Baby, I can't be home all the time. You need someone to take care of you when I'm working. But what if she's like Vivian? What if she says mean things?" Elena's heart broke at the fear in that small voice. She'd seen trauma before, recognized the signs. This child had been terrorized, systematically broken down by someone who was supposed to protect her. Without thinking about protocol or permission, Elena knelt down as well, putting herself at Isabella's eye level. "Isabella, my name is Elena. Can I tell you something?" The little girl looked at her father, who nodded permission. Then she looked back at Elena. "Okay, I had a big brother named Alexei. When I was little, I was scared of a lot of things. Scared of the dark, scared of strangers, scared of loud noises. And you know what Alexei used to tell me?" "What?" He said, "Being scared doesn't make you weak. It makes you smart. Because being scared means you know when something's not right. And when you tell people you're scared, when you ask for help, that's the bravest thing you can do." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared for a really long time. But Vivian said I couldn't tell Daddy because then he'd think I was bad." "You're not bad, Isabella. You were never bad. Someone told you a lie because they wanted you to feel small and powerless. But you're not powerless. You told your daddy the truth, and that was incredibly brave." A tear rolled down Isabella's cheek. "You're not going to be mean to me? I promise you I will never be mean to you. And if I ever say or do anything that makes you uncomfortable, you can tell your daddy immediately. Okay?" "Okay." Luca was staring at Elena with an expression she couldn't quite read. Surprise, maybe. Or assessment. Trying to figure out if this was genuine compassion or calculated manipulation. Elena understood his suspicion. In his world, everyone had angles. Everyone wanted something. He had no reason to trust her. But Isabella did. The little girl took a tentative step forward, still clutching her rabbit. "Will you read me a story?" "Daddy tries, but he always falls asleep before the ending." Despite the tension, Elena smiled. "I'd love to read you a story, but only if your daddy says it's okay." Luca stood slowly. "Bella, why don't you go pick out a book? Miss Volkov and I need to finish talking first." Isabella nodded and disappeared back down the hallway. Once she was out of earshot, Luca turned to Elena with renewed intensity. "That was either the most genuine thing I've seen in years, or you're the best actor I've ever met." I meant every word I said to her. "Even the part about your brother." Elena's carefully constructed facade cracked slightly. The mention of Alexei always hurt, even when she used his memory as cover. Especially that part. He died 3 months ago. Car accident. The lie came easily. She'd practiced it, but the pain was real enough that Luca's expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry for your loss. Losing family." He trailed off, his eyes distant. "It changes you." "Yes, it does." They stood in silence for a moment. Two people who'd both lost someone they loved, both carrying grief they couldn't fully express. "The job is yours," Luca said finally. "Live-in position. Your quarters are on the west side of the penthouse. Salary is $200,000 a year, plus benefits. You'll have access to a car and driver when needed. But there are conditions." "I'm listening." "First, Isabella's safety is paramount. If you ever see anything or anyone that concerns you, you report it to me immediately. Second, this household has security protocols. You'll be briefed by Marco. You follow those protocols exactly. No exceptions. Third, discretion is essential. What happens in this family stays in this family. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear, Mr. Santoro." "Call me Luca. If you're going to be living here, we should at least be on a first-name basis." He extended his hand. "Welcome to the family, Elena." Elena shook his hand, feeling the strength in his grip, the calluses that spoke of violence in his past. This close, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried trying to be both a crime boss and a single father. For a moment, she almost felt guilty about her real reasons for being here. Almost. Then she remembered Alexei's funeral, remembered the 23 children currently trapped in a shipping container somewhere in this city, waiting to be sold, remembered why she was doing this. "Thank you for trusting me with Isabella," she said. "I won't let you down. See that you don't. Because if you hurt my daughter, if you betray my trust the way Vivian did, There won't be anywhere in the world you can hide. Do you understand? The threat was clear. But Elena had expected it. I understand perfectly. Good. You can start tomorrow. Marco will have your quarters ready and brief you on security protocols. Luca walked toward the hallway. Now, I believe my daughter is waiting for that story. Elena followed him to Isabella's room, where the little girl had arranged herself in bed with 3 picture books spread around her. She looked up hopefully when they entered. Did you say yes? Can Elena be my nanny? Yes, Bella. Elena's going to be staying with us. Isabella's face lit up with the first genuine smile Elena had seen from her. Really? You're really staying? Really, Elena confirmed, settling into the chair beside the bed. Now, which book should we read first? As Isabella launched into an explanation about each book's merits, Luca stood in the doorway watching. Elena could feel his gaze on her, assessing, calculating, trying to determine if she was the answer to his problems or another threat in disguise. She'd have to be very careful. One wrong move, one slip in her cover, and Luca Santoro would discover that his new nanny wasn't what she seemed, that Elena Volkov had her own agenda, her own targets, her own war to win. But for now, she read Isabella a story about a brave little rabbit who learned to overcome her fears. And when the child's eyes finally drooped closed, Elena sat there for a long moment, looking at this innocent 6-year-old who'd become an unwitting piece in a much larger game. I'm sorry, Elena whispered to the sleeping child. I'm sorry for using you to get to your father. But I promise, when this is over, you'll be safer than you've ever been. Dmitry Kozlov will never hurt another child again. She stood up quietly and found Luca waiting in the hallway. She likes you, he said. That's rare. Isabella doesn't trust easily anymore. She's been through a lot. It'll take time to rebuild that trust. How much time? Elena met his eyes. As much as she needs. Healing can't be rushed. And what about you, Elena? What are you healing from? The question caught her off guard. For a moment she considered telling him the truth. About Alexei, about Dmitry, about why she was really here. But it was too soon. Too risky. Everyone's healing from something, she said instead. The question is whether we let it destroy us or make us stronger. Luca studied her face for another long moment, then nodded slowly. Get some rest, Elena. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Isabella has school at 8, and she'll want you to take her. I'll be ready. As Elena left the penthouse that night, she pulled out her phone and sent a single encrypted message to her contact. I'm in. Phase 1. Complete. Beginning surveillance. The response came back immediately. Be careful. Santoro is dangerous. Don't get emotionally involved. Elena looked back at the building, at the lit windows of the penthouse where a broken little girl was finally sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. Too late for that warning. She was already involved. Already cared about Isabella's welfare beyond what the mission required. Already felt the pull of attraction to a man she was supposed to be using. This was going to be more complicated than she'd planned. But as Elena walked through the New York night, she steeled her resolve. She had a job to do, children to save, a brother to avenge. And if that meant deceiving Luca Santoro, earning his trust while planning to use his resources to destroy Dmitry Kozlov, then that's what she'd do. Even if it meant breaking her own heart in the process. Even if it meant becoming exactly the kind of person Luca feared most. Another betrayer, another liar, another person who got close only to hurt what he loved most. But she'd deal with that guilt later. After Dmitry was dead, after the children were safe, after she'd proven that sometimes the ends really did justify the means. The next morning, Elena moved into the west wing of Luca's penthouse with 2 suitcases and a laptop containing encrypted files on every known associate of Dmitry Kozlov. Her quarters were larger than her entire apartment had been a bedroom, private bathroom, and small sitting area with windows overlooking Central Park. Marco gave her the security briefing. Panic buttons in every room, cameras monitoring all entrances, a rotation of armed guards on the building perimeter. Protocols for leaving the building with Isabella, protocols for visitors, protocols for everything. Boss takes his daughter's safety seriously, Marco said, his eyes shrewd. After what happened with the last nanny, he's not taking any chances. What exactly did happen with Vivian Chen? Elena asked, keeping her tone casual. Marco's expression darkened. She was working for someone, using the kid to gather intelligence on the boss. When Luca found out, he personally handled it. Vivian Chen disappeared that night, hasn't been seen since. Elena felt a chill. The way Marco said handled it left little doubt about Vivian's fate. What kind of intelligence? Business stuff. Documents from his office, schedules, contacts. The kind of information rival families would pay good money for. Marco met her eyes directly. Point is, you're under a microscope, Elena. Boss trusts you with his daughter, but that doesn't mean we're not watching. Any sign you're anything other than what you claim, and you'll have a very short career. Understand? Perfectly. After Marco left, Elena sat in her new room processing the information. Vivian Chen had been a plant. Someone inside Luca's organization had been gathering intelligence for a rival family. That fit with everything Elena knew about Dimitri's operations. He infiltrated organizations from the inside, found weaknesses, exploited them ruthlessly. But why target Luca Santoro specifically? What connection existed between the Santoro and Kozlov families that warranted deep cover surveillance? Elena pulled out her encrypted laptop and began digging through her files. 3 hours later, she found it. 4 months ago, Luca had been negotiating with Dimitri about territorial boundaries in Queens, specifically about warehouse access in the port district, the same port district where Dimitri's trafficking operation processed its human cargo. Luca didn't know what was really happening in those warehouses. Thought he was negotiating standard organized crime business smuggling, maybe drugs, maybe weapons. Had no idea that children were being moved through facilities he was being asked to grant access to. Dimitri had planted Vivian to ensure Luca remained ignorant, to gather intelligence on whether the Santoro family had any suspicions about the real cargo, and to have leverage Isabella if Luca ever became a problem. Elena's hands clenched into fists. Dimitri had been willing to terrorize a 6-year-old child as part of his business strategy, had threatened her, broken her down psychologically, all to maintain his trafficking operation. This was personal now. Not just about avenging Alexei. This was about protecting Isabella, about making sure Dimitri never hurt another child. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Elena? Isabella's small voice. Are you in there? Elena quickly closed her laptop and opened the door. Isabella stood there in her school uniform, backpack ready. Daddy said you're taking me to school today. I am. Are you ready to go? Isabella nodded, then hesitated. Elena, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Are you going to stay? Or are you going to leave like Vivian did? The question hit Elena harder than it should have. She knelt down to Isabella's level. I'm not going anywhere, Isabella. I promise. Vivian made promises too. I know. But I'm different from Vivian. You know how I know? How? Because I actually care about you. Not about using you. Not about what I can get from your father. Just you, Isabella. You matter to me. It was true, Elena realized with surprise. This child had gotten under her defenses in less than 24 hours. The mission was still important. Dimitri still needed to be stopped. But Isabella's well-being had become just as crucial. Isabella studied her face with those 2 wise gray eyes. Then she reached out and took Elena's hand. Okay. I believe you. The drive to St. Catherine's Academy gave Elena time to observe Luca's security protocols. Marco drove them in an armored SUV. 2 additional vehicles followed at discreet distances. The route varied each day. Never the same twice. Cameras monitored every approach to the school. Does this seem excessive to you? Elena asked Marco quietly while Isabella was focused on her tablet. Boss has enemies. Lots of them. Anyone wanting to hurt him would target the kid first. After what happened with Maria, he trailed off. Let's just say we're not taking chances. At school pickup that afternoon, Elena noticed something that made her professional instincts flare. A man in a gray sedan, parked across the street. He'd been there that morning too. Same spot, same vehicle. Not obviously threatening, but not obviously innocent either. She made a mental note of the license plate and took a subtle photo with her phone. That evening, after Isabella was asleep, Elena knocked on Luca's office door. He looked up from his desk. Papers spread in front of him, reading glasses perched on his nose. Somehow, the glasses made him look less dangerous, more human. Elena, is everything all right with Isabella? She's fine, sleeping peacefully. But I need to talk to you about something I noticed today. His expression sharpened. I'm listening. Elena showed him the photo. This car was outside the school this morning and this afternoon. Same spot, same driver. Could be nothing, but in my world, coincidences are usually threats. Luca took her phone, forwarding the image to his own device. Good eye. I'll have Marco run the plates. There's something else. Elena took a calculated risk. Isabella mentioned that Vivian used to go through your office at night. that she saw her taking pictures of documents with her phone. Luca's jaw tightened. She told you that? She trusts me. She wanted me to know so I could protect her if it happened again. It won't happen again. I made sure of that. The way he said it sent another chill through Elena. She was playing a dangerous game, getting closer to a man who killed without hesitation when his family was threatened. Luca, I need to ask you something directly. Is Isabella in danger? Real danger? Not just theoretical? He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Then he gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. We need to have a conversation about what you've walked into. Elena sat, her heart rate accelerating slightly. My family has been in organized crime for 3 generations, Luca said. We control territory, we have business interests, we occasionally resort to violence when necessary, but we have rules, lines we don't cross. One of those lines is children. We don't target kids, we don't use them as leverage, we don't involve them in our business. He paused, removing his glasses and rubbing his eyes. Not everyone shares those rules. Some families, especially the Eastern Europeans, they have no boundaries. No honor. They see children as tools, as property, as merchandise. Elena's pulse quickened. He was circling around it, around Dmitri. 4 months ago, I was approached by Dmitri Kozlov about territory in the port district. He wanted access to certain warehouses, wanted to move goods through facilities we control. I thought it was standard business. Smuggling, maybe drugs. I didn't know what he was really moving. What was he really moving? Elena asked, even though she already knew. Children. The word came out like poison. He's running a trafficking operation. Young girls brought in from Eastern Europe, sold to the highest bidders. I found out 3 weeks ago, right after I discovered what Vivian was really doing here. How did you find out? Someone sent me evidence. Anonymous package, delivered to my office. Financial records, shipping manifests, surveillance footage. Enough to prove what Dmitri was doing. Enough to make me realize that Vivian had been planted here to keep me ignorant, to make sure I didn't interfere with his operation. Elena's mind raced. Someone else had sent evidence? Who? Another enemy of Dmitri's? What did you do with the information? She asked carefully. I told Dmitri the deal was off, that I wanted nothing to do with his operation. He wasn't happy about it. Luca stood up, walking to the windows, overlooking the city. That's when things got dangerous. That's when I realized Vivian wasn't just gathering intelligence. She was leverage. If I interfered with Dmitri's business, he'd use Isabella against me. But you fired Vivian anyway. I didn't fire her, Elena. I eliminated a threat to my daughter. He turned to face her. I need you to understand something. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you. But my daughter is innocent. She deserves to be protected. If that means getting my hands dirty, so be it. Elena stood up, crossing to stand beside him at the window. I don't think you're as bad as you believe. Bad men don't agonize over their daughter's trauma. They don't hire nannies with childhood development expertise. They don't spend hours reading bedtime stories even when they're exhausted. Don't make the mistake of thinking I'm something I'm not. I'm not. I see exactly what you are. A father trying to protect his child in a world that wants to hurt her. There's nothing wrong with that. Their eyes met. For a moment, Elena forgot about the mission, forgot about Dmitri, forgot about everything except the man standing in front of her, the pain in his eyes, the exhaustion, the weight of responsibility. She was attracted to him, dangerously attracted, to his strength, his protectiveness, the glimpses of vulnerability beneath the dangerous exterior. This was a complication she couldn't afford. I should go, she said, stepping back. It's late. Elena. Luca's voice stopped her at the door. Thank you. For caring about Isabella, for actually seeing her instead of just using her to get to me. If only he knew how close to home that observation hit. She's easy to care about, Elena said softly. Good night, Luca. Back in her room, Elena pulled out her encrypted phone and sent another message. Luca knows about the trafficking operation. Someone sent him evidence 3 weeks ago. Need to identify source. Also, gray sedan watching the school, possible Kozlov surveillance. The response came back within minutes. Be careful. If Luca discovers your real identity, he'll kill you. No matter how much Isabella likes you. Elena looked at the wall separating her room from Luca's office. On the other side, a dangerous man was trying to protect his daughter from a monster even worse than himself. And Elena was caught between them. Lying to Luca, using his resources, preparing to manipulate him into a war that might get them all killed. But it was the only way to stop Dmitri. The only way to save the children trapped in his operation. The only way to avenge Alexei's death. Even if it meant betraying the trust of a 6-year-old girl who'd already been betrayed too many times. Even if it meant breaking something fragile developing between her and Luca. The mission came first. It had to. But as Elena lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was making a terrible mistake. That getting close to the Santoro family was going to cost her more than she was prepared to pay. That by the time this was over, she'd lose not just her cover, but something far more valuable. Her heart. 3 days into her new position, Elena's carefully constructed plan began to unravel. It started with the gray sedan. Marco had run the plates. They came back to a shell company registered in Delaware. The kind of corporate structure organized crime used to hide ownership. When Marco dug deeper, the trail led to an address in Brighton Beach. Russian territory. Kozlov territory. Dimitri's watching the school, Luca said that evening, his voice tight with controlled anger. He's been watching my daughter for weeks, maybe months. They were in his office, Isabella safely asleep down the hall. Elena had learned that this was when Luca did his real work after his daughter was in bed, when he could focus on the dangerous business that paid for their gilded cage. "What do you want to do?" Elena asked, careful to sound concerned but not too knowledgeable. A nanny would worry about her charge's safety, but she wouldn't immediately suggest tactical responses. "I want to know why." Luca paced the length of his office, the predator barely contained beneath the expensive suit. 4 months ago, Dimitri and I had one negotiation about warehouse access. I turned him down 3 weeks ago, when I found out what he was really moving through those facilities. Why is he still watching my family? Because you're a threat, Elena thought. Because you know about the trafficking and Dimitri can't risk you talking to the FBI or rival families. Because terrorizing your daughter is his insurance policy. But she couldn't say any of that without revealing how much she knew. "Maybe he's looking for leverage," she said instead. "If he can't do business with you willingly, maybe he's planning to force your cooperation." Luca stopped pacing, turning to look at her with sharp intelligence. "That's exactly what he's doing. The question is, why does a nanny know enough about organized crime to reach that conclusion?" Elena's heart rate spiked. She'd made a mistake, shown too much understanding of the criminal mind. "I read a lot of thrillers," she said with a slight smile. "Maybe I watched too many crime shows. Maybe." But Luca's eyes said he didn't quite believe her. "Or maybe you're smarter than you're letting on." Before Elena could respond, Luca's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. "It's Dimitri. At midnight. This can't be good," he answered on speaker. "Kozlov." "Luca, I hope I'm not calling too late." Dimitri's accented voice was smooth, friendly, the voice of a snake offering poisoned advice. "I wanted to check in about our warehouse discussion. Have you reconsidered my proposal? I told you 3 weeks ago. I'm not interested in facilitating your operation." Such harsh words. Operation makes it sound criminal. Dimitri laughed. "I'm simply moving merchandise through established trade routes. Nothing illegal about it. Children aren't merchandise, Dimitri." Silence. When Dimitri spoke again, his voice had lost its friendly veneer. "I see someone has been telling you stories. You shouldn't believe everything you hear, Luca. Rumors and lies spread so easily in our world. I've seen the evidence. I know what you're doing. Evidence can be fabricated. Enemies can plant false information to turn allies against each other." Dimitri's tone hardened. "But let's say, hypothetically, that I was running the operation you describe. In that case, I would need to ensure that certain people didn't interfere. People with daughters in expensive private schools. Daughters who walk predictable routes at predictable times. Daughters who could so easily disappear." Elena saw Luca's hands clench into fists. His voice when he spoke was deadly calm. "If you touch Isabella, if you even think about touching my daughter, I will burn your entire organization to the ground and scatter the ashes across 3 continents. Such passion, such protectiveness. It's admirable, really, but also foolish. You can't protect her 24 hours a day, Luca. Accidents happen. Children wander off. Nannies can be bribed or eliminated." Luca's eyes snapped to Elena. In that moment, she saw him calculating whether she was part of this threat. Whether she was another plant, another weapon aimed at his daughter. Elena held his gaze steadily, shook her head slightly. "Not me. I'm not with him. My new nanny is loyal," Luca said into the phone. "Unlike the last one, you're running out of leverage, Dimitri." "Am I? We'll see." "Oh, and Luca?" Give my regards to young Isabella. Tell her Uncle Dmitri hopes she's settling in with her new caretaker. It would be such a shame if something happened to interrupt her education. The line went dead. Luca set down his phone very carefully, like he was afraid he might crush it. Elena, I need you to tell me the truth right now. Are you working for Dmitri Kozlov? No. Are you working for any of my enemies? Elena made a split-second decision. Partial truth was safer than complete deception. I'm not working for your enemies, but I'm not exactly what I seem either. Luca's hand moved toward his hip, toward the weapon she knew he carried. Explain. Now. My brother Alexei was killed 3 months ago. Car accident, the police said. But I know it was murder. I know Dmitri Kozlov ordered it because Alexei discovered what Dmitri was running through the port, the trafficking operation. I came to New York looking for a way to get close to Dmitri, to gather evidence that would destroy him. And I was your way in. Yes. I knew about the warehouse negotiations. Knew you'd turned Dmitri down. Knew that made you a potential ally, even if you didn't realize it yet. When I saw the nanny position, I thought, you thought you'd infiltrate my organization, use my resources, and manipulate me into your personal vendetta. Luca's voice was ice. You thought you'd use my daughter. I thought I'd protect your daughter while stopping the man who's threatening her. Dmitri won't stop with surveillance, Luca. He'll escalate. He'll kidnap Isabella or worse. The only way to keep her safe is to destroy him completely. So you lied to me, deceived me, made my daughter trust you. I care about Isabella. That's not a lie. Whatever my original intentions, she matters to me now. Protecting her is just as important as stopping Dmitri. Luca studied her face for a long moment. Elena forced herself to stay still, to not fidget or look away. Everything depended on whether he believed her. If you're lying, he said finally. If you're working with Dmitri and this is some elaborate game. I'm not. Let me prove it. Elena pulled out her phone, opening the encrypted files. These are Alexei's files. Everything he gathered on Dmitri's operation before he was killed. Financial records, shipping manifests, surveillance footage. I've been adding to them for 3 months. Names, dates, locations. Enough to bring down Dmitri and everyone connected to him. She handed Luca the phone. He scrolled through the files, his expression unreadable. This is real intelligence, professional grade. My brother was FSB before he defected. He trained me, taught me how to gather evidence, how to build cases. When he died, I inherited his mission. And you thought I'd just let you use my family as part of that mission? I thought you'd want the same thing I do, to protect innocent children, to stop a monster who treats human beings like property. Luca handed back her phone. You're right. I do want that. But I don't appreciate being deceived. Don't appreciate having someone in my home who isn't what they claim to be. I know. I'm sorry. But Luca, we don't have time for this argument. Dmitri just threatened Isabella directly. He's moving to the next phase. We need to act now, before he does. We? Luca's eyebrow rose. You think we're partners now? I think we have the same enemy and the same goal. That makes us allies, whether you like it or not. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Luca moved to his desk, pulling out a file. 3 weeks ago, someone sent me evidence about Dmitri's trafficking operation. Anonymous package, no return address. Was that you? Elena shook her head. No. I didn't know you were investigating him until I started working here. Then who sent it? Who else is targeting Dmitri? That was the question Elena had been asking herself since Marco mentioned the package. Who else had evidence? Who else wanted Dmitri destroyed? The answer, when it came, chilled her blood. Someone inside Dmitri's organization, she said slowly. Someone who has access to his records, his operations. Someone who wants him taken down but can't do it themselves. A traitor in the Kozlov family. Or someone trying to start a war between you and Dmitri, using you as a weapon to eliminate their competition. Luca's eyes sharpened. Which means we're being played. By someone who knew I'd react to evidence of child trafficking. Knew I'd turn against Dmitri. Knew it would escalate into exactly this situation. We need to find out who sent that package. Agreed. But first, Luca picked up his phone again, calling Marco. I want triple security on Isabella starting immediately. 6 men minimum, rotating shifts. I want counter-surveillance on anyone watching the school, and I want to know every person Dmitri Kozlov has spoken to in the past 3 months. He ended the call and turned back to Elena. You're staying. For now. But understand something, you lie to me again. About anything. And our alliance ends. With you in a shallow grave. Clear? Crystal. Good. Now, tell me everything in those files, every detail about Dimitri's operation, because tomorrow morning, we're going to start dismantling his empire piece by piece. And if anyone tries to hurt my daughter in the process, they're going to learn exactly how far a father will go to protect his child. Elena nodded, opening her laptop. As she began laying out the intelligence Alexei had died gathering, she caught Luca watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Suspicion, yes. Anger at her deception, but also something else. Respect, maybe. Recognition that she was more than just a nanny, that she was a soldier in a war neither of them had chosen, but both were committed to winning. One more thing, Luca said as dawn began to lighten the sky outside his office windows. When this is over, when Dimitri is dead and his operation is destroyed, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about trust, deception, and what happens to people who use my daughter as part of their plans. I look forward to it. You shouldn't, because I'm still deciding whether you're the best thing that's happened to Isabella since her mother died, or the biggest threat she's ever faced. Elena met his eyes. I guess you'll find out. As she left his office, Elena realized the mission had just become infinitely more complicated. She'd gained Luca as an ally, yes, but she'd also made an enemy of the most dangerous man in New York, if he ever decided she'd betrayed his trust. And somewhere in the building, Isabella slept peacefully, unaware that the nanny she'd come to trust was actually a Russian agent with a vendetta, unaware that her father and her caretaker were about to drag her into a war that would determine the fate of 23 children and reshape the criminal underworld of New York City. The game had changed. The stakes had been raised, and Elena Volkov had just committed herself to a path that would end in either justice or death, possibly both. The morning sun cast long shadows across Luca's office as he stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city wake up below. He'd been awake since 4, unable to sleep after the revelations about Vivian. Isabella was still in his bed, finally resting peacefully with 2 of his most trusted men stationed outside the bedroom door. Marco had called 20 minutes ago. Everything was in place. 30 of their best soldiers positioned strategically throughout the city, waiting for Luca's signal. The accountant who'd been feeding information to Dimitri had been quietly detained. The warehouse manager had disappeared in the night, never to be found. The corrupt cop had woken up to find photographs of his betrayal scattered across his kitchen table, along with a simple note, "Run." But Luca's mind wasn't on the tactical movements or the chess pieces falling into place. It was on the meeting scheduled for 10 o'clock. The warehouse situation that Dimitri had mentioned. The final move in whatever game the Kozlov family had been playing. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. Luca let it ring twice before answering, his voice neutral. Yes? Mr. Santoro? A woman's voice. Professional. Clipped. Unfamiliar. My name is Elena Volkov. I believe we need to talk before you do something both of us will regret. Luca's hand tightened on the phone. Volkov. One of the old Russian families. Connected to the Kozlovs through marriage and blood. I don't know any Elena Volkov, but I know you. And more importantly, I know what happened last night with Vivian Chen. I know about the recording device. I know about Dimitri's plan. She paused. And I know you're about to start a war that will get your daughter killed. Every muscle in Luca's body tensed. If you're threatening... I'm not threatening anyone, Mr. Santoro. I'm trying to save both our lives. Can we meet? Somewhere public, neutral territory. Just you and me. Why would I trust anything a Volkov has to say? Because unlike Dmitri Kozlov, I don't want you dead. I want him dead. And right now, you're the only person in New York with both the resources and the motivation to help me make that happen. Luca processed this. A Volkov turning against a Kozlov was unusual but not unheard of. These families had been feuding, allying, and betraying each other for generations. Still, walking into a meeting with an unknown player was asking to get a bullet in the head. The Met Museum, Luca said finally. European Paintings Gallery. 11 o'clock. Come alone. I'll be there. And Mr. Santoro? Don't bring your daughter anywhere near your office building today. Dimitri has plans for it that don't involve negotiations. The line went dead. Luca stood motionless for 30 seconds, his mind racing through possibilities. This could be a trap. Could be Dimitri using a woman's voice to lure him into a vulnerable position. Could be exactly what it sounded like, a desperate play by someone inside the Kozlov circle who wanted out. He made 3 calls in quick succession. First, to his sister Carla, the only family he had left besides Isabella. I need you to take Bella for the day. Maybe the week. Somewhere Dimitri doesn't know about. Carla's voice was sharp with concern. Luca, What's happening? I'll explain later. Just trust me. Pick her up from the penthouse in an hour. Use the service entrance. Bring Tommy and at least 2 other men you trust with your life. Luca. Please, Carla. I can't lose her too. A pause. 1 hour. We'll keep her safe. Second call was to Marco. Change of plans. The meeting with Dimitri is a trap. He's planning something at the office building. I need you to evacuate everyone. Staff, tenants, everyone. Make it look like a gas leak or something. Do it now. What about the meeting? I'm still going. But I'm going on my terms, not his. Third call was to his head of security, a former Navy SEAL named Jack Reeves. I need a full tactical team at the Met Museum. Undercover. Tourists, guards, janitors, I don't care. But I want eyes on every entrance, every exit, and every person who comes within 50 feet of the European Paintings Gallery. You expecting trouble, boss? I'm always expecting trouble, Jack. That's why I'm still alive. At 10:30, Luca kissed Isabella's forehead as she ate breakfast in the kitchen, Carla sitting beside her making plans for a girls' day at the Central Park Zoo. His daughter looked lighter than she had in months, the shadows under her eyes beginning to fade. Daddy has to work today, he said, crouching down to her level. But Aunt Carla's going to take you to see the polar bears. Isabella's face lit up. Really? Can we get ice cream after? You can get whatever you want, princess. He pulled her into a tight hug, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. I love you more than anything in this world. You know that, right? I love you too. Daddy. She kissed his cheek. Are you going to be okay? The question, so innocent and yet so weighted with the fear of a child who'd already lost one parent, nearly broke him. I'm going to be fine. And when I get home tonight, we're going to have a long talk about everything that's been happening. No more secrets, okay? Okay. Carla caught his eye over Isabella's head. Her expression asked the question she couldn't voice in front of the child. Are you sure about this? Luca nodded once. He wasn't sure about anything except that Isabella would be safe. Everything else was negotiable. The Met Museum at 11 on a Thursday morning was crowded with tourists and school groups. Luca moved through the Greek and Roman galleries, past sculptures that had stood for thousands of years, witnesses to the rise and fall of empires. His phone buzzed. Jack's text was simple. In position. Target has arrived. Female, late 20s alone, seated near the Rembrandt. Luca entered the European Paintings Gallery with the casual stride of someone who visited museums regularly. In reality, he'd been here exactly once, when Maria had dragged him to see an exhibition on Renaissance masters. She'd loved art, loved the way it captured moments of beauty in a world that often felt too dark. He spotted Elena Volkov immediately. She sat on a bench facing Rembrandt's self-portrait, her posture perfect, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. And even from across the room, Luca could see she carried herself with the kind of confidence that came from dangerous breeding. She looked up as he approached, her green eyes assessing him with the same calculating precision he was using on her. Mr. Santoro, thank you for coming. You said Dimitri was planning something at my office building. What? Elena gestured to the empty space beside her on the bench. Sit. We have a lot to discuss, and I'd rather not do it while your security team aims rifles at my head from 3 different positions. Luca sat, maintaining careful distance. How did you know about my men? Because I have my own people watching yours. Former Spetsnaz, ex-FSB, the kind of professionals who can spot amateurs a mile away. Don't worry, they're not here to kill you. They're here to make sure Dimitri's people don't kill both of us. You still haven't answered my question. Elena turned to face him fully. Up close, he could see the faint scar running along her jawline, barely visible beneath expensive makeup. Dimitri planted explosives in your office building. Enough C4 to bring down 3 floors. He was planning to detonate them during your meeting this morning. Make it look like a gas explosion. You die, your top lieutenants die, and the Santoro family crumbles in the chaos. Luca's blood ran cold. And my daughter? Was supposed to be at school, according to his intelligence. He didn't know about Vivian's failure last night, didn't know his plan had been compromised. By evacuating the building, you've just told him you know about the trap. She checked her watch, which means he's probably scrambling right now, trying to figure out how deep his exposure goes. You're telling me this, why? What's your angle? Elena's laugh was bitter. My angle is survival, Mr. Santoro. Dmitri Kozlov killed my brother 3 months ago. Made it look like a car accident. Killed him, because Alexei discovered what Dmitri was really running through the port. Not just drugs or weapons, but something worse. Something that would bring federal heat down on all of us. What could be worse than drugs and weapons? Children. The word hung in the air like poison. Dimitri's been running a trafficking operation. Young girls, mostly from Eastern Europe, brought in through shipping containers, sold to the highest bidders. Your warehouse situation? That's his main processing center. He's been using the territorial negotiation as cover to expand his operation right under your nose. Luca felt something dark and primal rise in his chest. He'd built his empire on vice and violence, yes. On gambling, loan sharking, protection rackets. But there were lines he never crossed. Rules that separated men like him from monsters like Dimitri. Children were the brightest line of all. Why come to me? Why not the FBI? Because the FBI can't touch him. Dimitri has federal agents on his payroll, judges in his pocket, politicians who owe him favors. If I go to the authorities, I'm dead within a week. But you? Elena's green eyes held something Luca recognized. Rage, carefully controlled and precisely aimed. You have the resources, the manpower, and now the motivation to take him down. And I have the evidence. What evidence? Elena pulled a small thumb drive from her purse. Financial records, shipping manifests, surveillance footage from the warehouse, names of his clients, everything Alexei gathered before Dimitri had him killed. Everything I've been adding to for the past 3 months. Luca stared at the drive like it was a live grenade. If you have all that, why haven't you used it? Because evidence means nothing without the power to act on it. I'm a woman in a world run by violent men, Mr. Santoro. My family respects me, fears me even, but they won't go to war with the Kozlovs based on my word alone. They'd rather negotiate, compromise, find some way to profit from Dimitri's operation rather than destroy it. So you want me to do your dirty work. I want us to help each other. You want revenge for what Dimitri did to your daughter. I want justice for my brother. Together, we can end him. Separately, we're both targets waiting for the next attack. A school group passed through the gallery, their teacher droning on about brushwork techniques. Luca watched them, these innocent children learning about art and history, completely unaware that 2 people plotting murder were sitting 10 feet away. How do I know this isn't another setup? That you're not working with Dimitri to lure me into a false alliance? Elena reached up slowly, pulling back her hair to reveal the full extent of the scar along her jaw. Dimitri gave me this when I confronted him about Alexei's death. Told me if I ever questioned him again, the next cut would be across my throat. I've been planning his death every day since. The scar was professional work, deep enough to have required extensive surgery, precise enough to have been done with a very sharp blade. Someone had taken their time with it. Luca made a decision. The warehouse. When's the next shipment? Tomorrow night, 11 o'clock. Container ship from Odessa. 23 girls, ages 12 to 16. Elena's voice was steady, but Luca could see her hands clenching. Dimitri will be there personally. He always supervises the high-value shipments. How many men will he have? At least 20, maybe more. The warehouse is fortified, cameras, guards, escape routes. He's not stupid. Neither am I. Luca stood up. I need to verify your information. If it checks out, we move tomorrow night. But understand something, Elena Volkov. If you're lying to me, if this is some elaborate trap, there won't be anywhere in the world you can hide. Elena stood as well, meeting his gaze without flinching. I understand perfectly. And Mr. Santoro? When this is over, when Dimitri is dead and those children are free, I'm going to need your help with something else. What? Leaving this life. I want out. Away from the families, the violence, the constant calculation of who to trust and who to kill. I want to disappear into a normal life, where my biggest worry is traffic and taxes. Luca studied her face, reading the exhaustion beneath the expensive makeup and designer clothes. He recognized it because he saw the same thing in his mirror every morning. The weight of living in a world where trust was currency and betrayal was the common language. If your information is good, I'll make that happen. New identity, new city, enough money to start over. You have my word. The word of a Mafia boss. Should I feel comforted? My word is the only thing in this world I don't break. Ask anyone who's dealt with me. Elena extended her hand. Luca shook it, feeling the calluses on her palm. This woman wasn't just some pampered princess playing at being dangerous. She'd held guns, fought battles, survived in a world that chewed up and spit out anyone weak enough to show vulnerability. Tomorrow night then, she said. I'll text you the exact location and entry points. Bring enough men to handle a war, because that's what this will be. I'm counting on it. Elena walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floors. Luca waited 60 seconds, then followed a different route out of the museum. Jack's voice came through his earpiece. Target left through the 5th Avenue exit. 2 men following at a distance, Russian or Ukrainian based on their build. Want us to intercept? No. Let them report back to Dmitri that I met with her. I want him paranoid. Boss. This could be. I know what it could be, Jack. But my gut says she's telling the truth, and we're going to find out for sure in the next 12 hours. Back in his car, Luca called Marco. I need you to pull every file we have on the warehouse in Red Hook. Building plans, security systems, everything. And I want surveillance on it starting now. Round the clock. I want to know how many guards, what their rotation is, every vehicle that comes and goes. What are we looking for? Boss? Evidence that Dmitry Kozlov is running a child trafficking operation out of a warehouse he's been pretending to negotiate over. Marco's silence spoke volumes. Then, if that's true, boss, this isn't just about territory anymore. No, it's not. Luca's voice was cold as winter steel. If it's true, tomorrow night we're not just taking down Dmitry. We're burning his entire organization to the ground. The next 18 hours were a blur of preparation. Luca's people confirmed Elena's information piece by piece. The warehouse existed. The shipping container from Odessa was real, scheduled to arrive at exactly 11 p.m. Surveillance showed increased activity at the location, guards doubling their patrols, security measures being enhanced. Most damning of all, one of Luca's informants at the port identified 3 men who'd been seen at the warehouse known associates of Eastern European trafficking rings, specialists in moving human cargo across international borders. Isabella remained with Carla at a safe house in Connecticut, guarded by 6 armed men who'd been with the Santoro family for over a decade. Luca spoke to her every few hours, listening to her excited chatter about the zoo and the ice cream and the new stuffed penguin Aunt Carla had bought her. Each conversation felt like it might be the last. Tomorrow night was going to be violent. People would die. And there was always the possibility that one of those people would be him. At 9 p.m. the night of the operation, Luca stood in the armory beneath his office, building the one Dmitri had tried to destroy with explosives. 40 men assembled before him, all armed with automatic weapons, body armor, tactical gear. These weren't street thugs or amateur enforcers. These were professionals, former military, ex-police, men who'd seen real combat and survived. Tonight we're not fighting over territory, Luca said, his voice carrying through the concrete room. We're not fighting over money or respect or power. Tonight we're fighting to save children, kids who've been stolen from their families, shipped across the world like cargo, sold to monsters who deserve to burn in hell. He paused, making eye contact with each man. Some of you have children. Some of you were children when violence found you. Every single one of you knows what it's like to be afraid, to be helpless, to pray that someone stronger would step in and make the darkness go away. Tonight we're that someone. Tonight we save those kids, and if we have to kill every single person standing between us and them, that's exactly what we'll do. The men responded with grim nods. No cheers, no bravado. They understood the stakes. Marco stepped forward. Boss, Elena Volkov is here. Says she wants to go in with the assault team. Luca hadn't expected that. Send her down. Elena appeared 2 minutes later, dressed in black tactical gear that fit her like it had been custom-made. Probably because it had been. She carried a Sig Sauer P-226 on her hip and had the confident bearing of someone who knew how to use it. I told you to provide intelligence, not join the fight, Luca said. And I told you I wanted justice for my brother. That means being there when Dmitri dies, being the last thing he sees before the lights go out. This isn't a movie, Elena. People are going to die tonight. Probably a lot of people. Good, as long as Dmitri is one of them. Her green eyes held no doubt, no fear. Only cold determination. I've been training for this my entire life, Mr. Santoro. I'm not some civilian playing soldier. I've killed before. I can kill again. Luca studied her for a long moment, then nodded. You stay close to me. You follow my orders exactly. And if I tell you to get down, to run, to shoot, you do it without question. Understood? Understood. Good. Because if you get killed tonight, I lose my best source of intelligence on the Kozlov organization. And I don't like losing assets. Elena smiled, sharp and dangerous. I'll try not to disappoint you. At 10:45, 5 unmarked vans converged on the warehouse in Red Hook. The building loomed against the night sky, a massive structure of corrugated metal and concrete that had once processed shipping containers legitimately. Now it processed human suffering. Luca's team moved into position with military precision. Snipers on surrounding rooftops, assault teams at each entrance, a technical crew ready to kill the power and communications on his signal. Jack Reeves coordinated everything through encrypted radios, his voice calm and professional despite the violence about to erupt. Elena stood beside Luca, behind a shipping container 50 yards from the main entrance. Through night vision goggles, they could see guards patrolling the perimeter, at least 12 visible, probably more inside. "The container ship should be arriving in 7 minutes, Elena whispered. "Dmitri will come out to supervise the unloading. That's when he's most vulnerable." Luca's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Change of plans. Dmitri knows you're coming. He's moved the girls to a secondary location. The warehouse is a trap. Get out now." He showed the message to Elena. Her face went pale. "That's impossible. I didn't tell anyone." Gunfire erupted from 3 directions simultaneously. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness as Dmitri's men opened fire on Luca's positions. The careful tactical plan dissolved into chaos in seconds. "Ambush!" Jack's voice crackled over the radio. "We've got shooters on the rooftops. They were waiting for us." Luca grabbed Elena and pulled her behind better cover as bullets sparked off the shipping container they'd been using for concealment. His mind raced through the implications. Someone had warned Dmitri. Someone knew about the assault. The only people who'd known were his inner circle and Elena. "It wasn't me," Elena said, reading his thoughts. "I swear on my brother's grave, it wasn't me." "Then who?" Luca returned fire, dropping one of Dmitri's men with 3 shots to center mass. Around them, the night exploded with violence. His men were taking heavy fire from entrenched positions. This wasn't a rescue operation anymore. It was a slaughter. "Fall back," Luca ordered into his radio. "All teams, fall back to the extraction point." But even as he gave the order, he saw the trap closing. Vehicles blocked the roads behind them. Men with automatic weapons emerged from buildings they'd thought were empty. Dmitri had known every detail of their plan, because Dmitri had been the one feeding Elena information, had been using her to lure Luca into exactly this position. "The evidence," Luca said, turning to Elena. "The thumb drive you showed me. It was bait." Elena's face crumpled as she realized the truth. "He knew I'd try to use Alexei's death against him. Knew I'd look for an ally. He's been playing me this entire time, feeding me information, letting me think I was hunting him when really you were the perfect weapon to bring me down." Luca finished the thought, and I walked right into it. A spotlight blazed to life, illuminating their position. Dmitri Kozlov's voice boomed through a loudspeaker. "Luca Santoro, I'm disappointed. I expected better from the great Mafia boss who thinks he's above the rest of us." Luca stayed behind cover, his mind calculating options. They were pinned down, outgunned, and out of position. His men were scattered, some already wounded or dead. This was precisely the kind of scenario he'd spent 20 years avoiding. "Let my men go, Dmitri. This is between you and me." Dmitri's laugh echoed across the warehouse district. "Your men are free to leave, in body bags. But you, Luca, you I'm keeping alive, at least until I'm done making an example of what happens to people who interfere with my business. And the girls? The children you've been trafficking? They're merchandise, property, and right now, they're the furthest thing from your concerns. Because in about 30 seconds, my men are going to storm your position. You can surrender, or you can die fighting. Either way, I win." Elena pressed something into Luca's hand. A real thumb drive this time, different from the one she'd shown him at the museum. "I lied about the evidence being on that first drive. The real files are here. Everything Alexei found, everything I've added. Names, dates, locations, bank accounts. Enough to destroy Dmitri and everyone connected to him. Why give it to me now? Because I won't survive the next 5 minutes. But you might. You're too valuable to kill quickly. Dmitri will want to make you suffer, which means you'll have time. Use it. Save those children, and tell my family that in the end, I chose to fight instead of run." Before Luca could respond, Elena stood up from behind the container. She fired 6 shots in rapid succession, each one finding a target. Then she sprinted toward the warehouse entrance, drawing fire away from Luca's position. "Elena, no!" But she was already gone, moving with the fearless desperation of someone who knew they were already dead. Dmitri's men concentrated their fire on her. She made it 20 yards before the bullets found her. She went down hard. her body crumpling onto the concrete. The distraction gave Luca exactly what he needed. 3 seconds of divided attention. He used them perfectly. His Glock barked 5 times, dropping the men on the spotlight. Darkness swallowed the warehouse district again. Then he was moving, using the chaos Elena had created to slip through Dimitri's perimeter toward a drainage culvert Marco had identified during their planning sessions. Behind him, the firefight intensified. His men were retreating in good order, providing covering fire for each other, maintaining discipline even in the face of overwhelming force. They'd been trained for this, had practiced exactly these scenarios. But they were still going to take casualties. Some of them wouldn't make it home tonight. Luca pushed the thought aside and focused on survival. The drainage culvert led to a storm sewer system that connected to the city's underground. It was dark, flooded with 6 inches of foul water, and claustrophobic enough to trigger panic in anyone who wasn't desperate. Luca was desperate. He crawled through the tunnel for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Behind him, the sounds of gunfire faded to distant pops. His phone was dead, soaked through with sewage water. The thumb drive Elena had given him was still clutched in his left hand. She died to buy him this chance. Died believing that he could somehow turn her sacrifice into justice. He couldn't let her down. The tunnel eventually opened into a larger chamber. Luca pulled himself out of the water, his expensive suit ruined, his body aching from crawling through concrete tubes. He was somewhere under Brooklyn, probably near the river. His tactical team would be trying to reach the extraction points. Dimitri's men would be hunting for survivors. And somewhere in this city, 23 terrified children were waiting in a shipping container, praying that someone would save them before they disappeared forever into the nightmare Dmitri Kozlov had built. Luca checked the thumb drive. Still intact, the waterproof casing had protected it. He'd lost the battle tonight, had walked into a trap that cost lives, including Elena's. But the war wasn't over. Not even close. Because now he had something Dmitri couldn't anticipate. Evidence that could burn down the entire Kozlov organization. Names, dates, proof of crimes that even corrupt officials couldn't ignore. And he had motivation that went beyond territory or pride or power. He had Isabella's face in his mind. Had the memory of her tears when she'd told him about the nanny's cruelty. Had the knowledge that somewhere in this city, other children were suffering the same fear, the same helplessness, the same desperate prayer for someone to make it stop. Luca pulled himself to his feet and began walking through the storm sewers, following the flow of water toward what he hoped was an exit. His phone might be dead, but he'd memorized the numbers of every safe house, every contact, every resource he had in this city. Tomorrow, he'd regroup. He'd review Elena's evidence. He'd plan a new assault, smarter and more surgical. And then he'd show Dmitri Kozlov what happened when you made an enemy of a man who had nothing left to lose except the children he'd sworn to protect. Both his own daughter and the 23 girls trapped in a container, waiting for rescue. The hunt wasn't over. It was just beginning. Luca emerged from the storm sewers 3 hours later, covered in filth but alive. He made his way to a safe house in Queens, where Marco was coordinating the aftermath. The news wasn't good. 4 men dead, 7 wounded, and Dmitri Kozlov was already spinning the story to the other families as a failed assassination attempt by the Santoros. But Luca had Elena's thumb drive. He spent the next 6 hours reviewing every file. Bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. Shipping manifests with coded entries. Surveillance footage showing Dmitri personally overseeing the trafficking operation. Names of buyers, politicians on the payroll, corrupt officials who'd been paid to look the other way. And most importantly, the location of the secondary facility where the children were being held. An abandoned textile factory in the Bronx, scheduled for demolition next month. The perfect place to hide human cargo. "We go tonight," Luca said to Marco and Jack, who'd survived the ambush with minor injuries. "We hit them before Dmitri can move the girls again." "Boss, we're down to 30 men," Marco protested. "Dmitri will be expecting another attack." "Good. Let him expect it, because this time we're not going in with guns blazing. We're going in smart." Luca made 3 calls. The first was to Detective Maria Santos, the honest cop he'd worked with before. "Maria, I'm about to send you evidence of a child trafficking operation. Federal-level crimes. Names that will make your career." "Luca, what are you involved in?" "Ending it. But I need you to coordinate with the FBI. I need agents at the Bronx textile factory at midnight. If they're not there, those children die." The second call was to every news station in the city. Anonymous tips about a major trafficking bust going down tonight. Luca knew Dimitri had federal agents on his payroll, but he couldn't buy every reporter in New York. The media attention would force the clean cops to act. The third call was to Dmitry Kozlov himself. "You're alive," Dmitry said, sounding genuinely surprised. "I'm impressed. We need to talk, face to face, just you and me." "Why would I do that?" "Because I have Elena Volkov's evidence, all of it, and in about 4 hours it's going to the FBI, the media, and every rival family in the city. Unless you give me what I want." Silence. Then, "What do you want?" "The children. Release them unharmed, and I'll give you a 12-hour head start before I release the files. Time to disappear before the entire world comes looking for you." "You expect me to believe you'd let me walk away?" "I expect you to understand that those children matter more to me than revenge. You can live the rest of your life in hiding, or you can die tonight with your empire burning around you. Your choice." More silence. Dmitry was calculating, weighing options. "The old textile factory. 1 hour. Come alone. I'll be there." Luca hung up and looked at Marco. "He's not going to release those children. He's going to try to kill me and destroy the evidence." "Then why go?" "Because while I'm keeping him busy, you're going to breach the factory from the north side. Jack's team takes the south. We hit him from 3 directions, and we don't stop until every single child is safe." Marco grinned. "Now that's a plan I can work with." At 11:30, Luca walked into the abandoned textile factory alone. His Glock was holstered, his hands visible, his steps echoing through the cavernous space. Moonlight streamed through broken windows, illuminating rusted machinery and collapsed sections of floor. Dmitry stood in the center of the factory floor, flanked by 10 armed men. He smiled when he saw Luca. "You actually came. I wasn't sure if you were that brave or that stupid. Where are the children?" "Safe. For now. Show me the evidence." Luca held up the thumb drive. "First, I see the children, alive and unharmed. Then we talk." Dmitry nodded to one of his men. A door opened, and 23 girls were herded into the room. They ranged in age from 12 to 16, their faces hollow with fear and exhaustion. Some had bruises, others looked like they'd stopped crying days ago. Luca's chest tightened. These could have been Isabella, could have been any child stolen from their families, stripped of their futures, sold like property. "They're fine, as you can see," Dmitry said. "Now, the drive. Let them go first." "You're not in a position to negotiate, Luca. My men have guns pointed at your head. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and completely at my mercy." "Am I?" Luca smiled. "Because I'm not the one who's about to have the FBI crash through those doors, and I'm not the one whose entire organization is about to be exposed to every news station in the city." Dmitry's smile faltered. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Check your phone. Check the news." Dmitry pulled out his phone. His face went pale as he scrolled through breaking news alerts. "FBI investigating major trafficking ring. Federal agents mobilize for rescue operation. Anonymous tip leads to massive child trafficking bust." "You see, Dmitry, I didn't come here to negotiate. I came here to keep you busy while the walls closed in around you." That's when the doors exploded inward. FBI agents in tactical gear flooded the factory from 3 directions, their voices booming. "Federal agents, everyone on the ground. Now." Dmitry's men hesitated, torn between fighting and surrendering. That hesitation cost them. Luca's teams breached from the north and south simultaneously, catching Dmitry's forces in a crossfire they couldn't escape. The children screamed and scattered. Luca moved immediately, herding them toward the FBI agents, using his body to shield them from any stray bullets. His men had orders: protect the children first, everything else second. The firefight lasted 90 seconds. When the smoke cleared, 8 of Dmitry's men were dead. The other 2 had surrendered. Dmitry himself stood with his hands raised, surrounded by federal agents. He locked eyes with Luca across the factory floor. "This isn't over." "Yes," Luca said quietly. "It is." FBI agents secured the children, wrapping them in emergency blankets, calling for paramedics and social workers. Luca watched them being led to safety, their nightmare finally ending. Detective Maria Santos appeared beside him. "The evidence you sent me, it's enough to bring down half the Russian mob in New York. Dmitry's going away for life. So are about 30 other people." "Good. Luca, I know you're not clean in this, but what you did tonight saving these children that matters. I'll make sure the prosecutors know you cooperated." "I don't need credit, Maria. I just needed them safe." She studied his face. You're a complicated man, Luca Santoro. I'm a father who understands what it means to be afraid for your child. That's all. As dawn broke over the Bronx, Luca stood outside the factory watching paramedics load the last of the children into ambulances. Marco appeared beside him, a bandage on his shoulder from a bullet graze. All our men made it out, boss. Few injuries, but everyone's alive. And Dimitri? Federal custody. They're taking him to a black site for interrogation. He's not getting out this time. Luca nodded. It was over. The war he'd been dreading, the violence he'd been preparing for it had ended not with his empire burning down, but with children being saved. His phone rang. Carla. Luca? Isabella saw the news. She wants to talk to you. Put her on. Isabella's voice was small but steady. Daddy, are you okay? I'm fine, baby. Everything's fine now. Did you save the children? The ones on TV? Luca looked at the ambulances pulling away, lights flashing in the gray morning. Yes, we saved them. Good. Because nobody should be scared like I was. Nobody should think they're bad when they're not. Those words hit him harder than anything that had happened in the past 48 hours. His daughter, who'd been terrorized by someone he'd trusted, who'd carried fear and shame for months, she understood. She knew what those children felt because she'd felt it too. You're right, Bella. Nobody should feel that way. And I'm going to make sure they don't. I promise. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Princess. More than anything in the world. 6 months later, Luca stood in his penthouse watching Isabella play the piano. She was learning the piece Maria used to play, the one that had filled their home with beauty before death took her away. The notes weren't perfect yet, but they were getting better. Just like Isabella was getting better, the therapy had helped. So had the time Luca now dedicated to actually being present in his daughter's life, instead of consumed by business. He'd restructured his organization, promoted younger men who understood that there were lines you didn't cross, rules that separated them from monsters. The Kozlov family had crumbled after Dimitri's arrest. Half their leadership was in federal custody. The other half had scattered to Europe, their power broken, their empire dismantled. And the 23 children? They'd been reunited with their families in Eastern Europe. Luca had quietly ensured each family received compensation money that couldn't erase the trauma, but could at least provide therapy, security, a chance to heal. Elena Volkov's family had reached out through intermediaries. They wanted to thank him for honoring her sacrifice. Luca had sent them her share of the Kozlov assets that had been seized, enough money to ensure her memory lived on through charity work she would have approved of. Daddy? Isabella's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Did I play it right? You played it perfectly, Bella. Do you think Mommy would be proud? Luca crossed the room and sat beside her on the piano bench. I think Mommy would be incredibly proud. Not just of your piano playing, but of how brave you've been. How strong. I was scared a lot. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep going even when you are. He kissed the top of her head. You're the bravest person I know. Isabella smiled, then started playing again. This time, the notes were even better. Luca listened and remembered why he'd fought so hard. Not for power or territory or respect, but for this. For the sound of his daughter playing piano on a Saturday morning. For the promise of a future where she could grow up without fear. Some battles weren't won with guns and violence. Some wars were won by protecting the innocent, by standing between predators and prey, by understanding that the most dangerous thing a man can possess isn't an empire. It's something worth protecting. And Luca Santoro had learned that lesson the hard way. But he'd learned it, and he'd never forget. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.